Members, I feel like every time I get up to debate, I echo the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Where do we go from here? Do we go from community or chaos? And members, I would say once again, this bill is another bill that's in a stream of chaos that is throwing Florida into a chaotic environment. We have heard, I think, every argument with regard to this abortion ban. And we have heard every argument, whether it's the constitutionality of it, whether it's how it will affect people. And much like my colleague, Representative Escamani, I have been wrestling with what to say and also understanding that I'm the closer on this, right? And I'm going to center my debate in the community of women and people that sent me here, Black folks. I'm going to center my debate in a hashtag that y'all might see, but trusting Black women. It was stated earlier that Planned Parenthood was established for the purpose of eugenics and eliminating Black people. And let me tell you why I find that highly offensive. Because it's rooted in anti-Black racism and it's rooted in patriarchy. And I also want to be clear that anti-Black racism and patriarchy, they have no race and they have no gender. And let me tell you why that I find that offensive. Because it's relegating Black women's bodies to only being useful for breeding. So I'm going to discuss facts. Historically, Black people and indigenous people's bodies have been shackled to the very foundation of this country, and there's always been a mission to control and retain power over their bodies. This bill is no different. It is easy to frame the conversation, it's a choice. But yet we ignore the historical oppression that's associated with Black women and people when it comes to controlling our own reproductive health. The decisions range from when we chose to get pregnant, when Black women were raped by their slave owners, and sexual violence took that choice away. This bill takes the choice away from sexual violence survivors to be able to access an abortion after 6 weeks. What are we doing? This bill says that people have to prove that some type of sexual violence has happened to them. There also, when we look at the history of this, we think about pregnancy to term and the decisions of how and where a child should be raised. And we can talk about Jim Crow and we can talk about the systemic oppression that even now Black and brown people face. And I'm going to get to what we call reproductive justice because I like to teach and I like to add that to be rooted in here. And so I'm keenly aware about how bills like this affect people who look like me. And I've already been very personal with y'all, so I'm not going to do any more trauma porn and tell you some of my personal stuff around the ability of me being able to have a child. I also want to be very clear that this bill and bills like this affect people who do not have the same healthcare options that we all are able to access by us, virtue of us being members of this house. This bill, just as the 15-week abortion ban has, as it's been said, has stripped people of their bodily autonomy. And given the history of this country and specifically the state regarding the same, this bill is wholly problematic and unconscionable. I want to sit you with a fact. Black women are more likely to die in childbirth than white women. It is a fact. So while we want to restrict the ability for people, Black women, to be able to access safe abortion, what are we doing to make sure they stop dying in childbirth? What have we done to make sure that Black women and Black birthing people stop dying in childbirth? But yet we are comfortable telling them how and why and who and should, how they are able to have children. Reproductive justice is the belief that all women and birthing people have the right to have children, have the right not to have children, so a choice, have the right to nurture that child, and have to nurture that child in a safe, healthy environment. With this bill, we are removing removing people's bodily autonomy and making decisions about one of the most personal healthcare situations. We are stripping people of that choice to make the decision to have a child or not to have a child. Even if you want to have a child, but you may not be able to carry one, we are stripping people of that right to have these really deep and personal conversations. When we're thinking about providing a safe and healthy environment for a child, what have we done to make this happen? Members, property insurance has gone up by 60%. People are losing their homes. They can't afford their homes. Do you think it's safe to raise a child in a place that's not a dwelling, in a car, on the street? Protections for renters have weakened. Rents are going up. The rent is too damn high. Food insecurity is happening all over our state. Members in the back rows have literally filed bill after bill to solve the very problem. We can't get them heard, and yet you are mandating that people have children, but you are not solving the very issues that would allow them to be healthy, prosperous, and safe, and allow us to have children and that they can live thriving, equitable lives. But this is what we're doing. And frankly, I'm tired. I don't know about the rest of y'all. Thank God it's week 6. We are propping up a political agenda on the backs of women and birthing people. This is very political. And we make it clear time and time again that the child that we care about is the one that's in the womb. Because if we really cared about the children that were out here walking, we would deal with the issues that I talked about. And also, I'm going to bring it back to centering Black folks. If we cared about the children, Black children, we would hold Black deaths that are sanctioned by state violence. We would actually do something about that, like the Stand Your Ground law and all these other laws. There was an amendment to divert the $25 million from the fake pregnancy clinics to create an education campaign around Black maternal health and mortality. That was voted down. So y'all can't make it make sense. You can't have both. You can't tell me that you care, but then literally vote down the very thing that can help folks. Many of you proclaim, "Do not tread on me." You wear your pins and you wear your socks, proclaiming your freedom and individualism. Yet with this bill and so many others, you tread on all of the women and the people of the state of Florida. There's been a lot of debate about faith. And if you're a person of a certain faith, you should be anti-abortion. Once again, I take great exception to this. Many of you know I'm in the process of getting my divinity degree. I was born and raised in the church. I love Jesus. And I have a problem when you tell me how my faith should look. Because the Bible says that you're supposed to work out your own salvation. I can't work out your salvation. You're supposed to work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. That's what the book says. And we talk about faith, and yet we demonize our constituents who come before us, calling them names and saying all manner of things about them. And a Methodist pastor said, Dave Barnhart said, "The unborn are a convenient group of people to advocate for. They never make demands of you. They are morally uncomplicated unless they're incarcerated, the addicted, or the chronically poor. They don't resent your condescension or complain that you are not politically correct. Unlike widows, they don't ask you to question patriarchy. Unlike orphans, they don't need money, education, or childcare. Unlike aliens, they don't bring all that racial and cultural religious baggage that y'all dislike. They allow you to feel good about yourself without any work at creating or maintaining relationships." This is a pastor who said this. "And when they are born, you can forget about them. It is almost as if by being born, they have died to you." And I'm going to end my debate with this. You may not listen to me, and I know many of you may be trying to get to Taylor Swift. So I'm going to leave you with some words that Taylor Swift said. "When leadership said they wouldn't pass an abortion ban in Florida until after the Supreme Court's ruling, I remember it all too well. You all know all too well that you insist on legislating death by 1,000 cuts. You need to calm down. Frankly, women and birthing people of Florida, The legislature wants to forget you existed. However, they need to remember the legislature, y'all are the anti-hero, hoping for a cruel summer. They say all's well that ends well, but Florida's in a new hell. Remember, karma is God.